World War II soldier finally laid to rest, 74 years after being declared missing. Private Lacey Anthony Tingle, an Army medic, was declared missing in action after he was parachuted into Normandy to help fallen comrades. Pte Tingle was declared missing in action on June 6, 1944, the first day Operation Overlord, and his distraught family were left wondering what happened to him. Now more than 7 decades later, his sister Margaret Keighley, 96, was contacted by the Ministry of Defense, who confirmed he had been buried in an unmarked grave in France. The MOD's Joint Casualty and Compassionate Center, JCCC, examined the grave of the unknown soldier in Ranville War Cemetery, and tests confirmed the remains were that of Tingle. Last week Tingle's sister Mrs. Keighley, 96, traveled from her home in Leamington Spa, Warks, to attend a special rededication service and ceremony at the cemetery. The retired secondary school teacher was accompanied by her daughter Zoe Smith and son Paul. Mrs. Keighley said, "It was just out of this world. It's 74 years since my brother disappeared, and then suddenly out of the blue I hear that they've found him. They found something on his body that identified him as my brother in the end. This was the first time he'd had a grave. It was a total surprise to me when I received the letter from the JCCC advising me that Lacey's final resting place had been found. I couldn't believe that this could be possible after 74 years. I suppose I always had a glimmer of hope he might be found or turn up alive, but knowing exactly where he is buried is a great comfort. It was only after meeting members of the JCCC team that I realized I had never properly grieved for my brother, as he was declared missing in action with no known grave. So, it brings great comfort to be able to visit his grave for this rededication and finally say goodbye. I am extremely grateful to everyone for making it possible." Tingle, from Hornsey, Middlesex, was a conscientious objector and enlisted into the non-combatant corps in February 1941. He was part of the bomb disposal unit before being transferred to the Royal Army Medical Seat. Tingle, 29, was officially declared missing in action on June 6, 1944, and is now known to have been killed in an ambush the next day. On June 7, 1944, in the village of Duville-en-Auge in Normandy, a group of British and Canadian paratroopers were surrounded by the enemy. 9 soldiers were lost, including Tingle, and the men were buried in the village by locals before being moved to the Ranville War Cemetery after the war ended. Tingle had been commemorated on the Bayeux Memorial in France, and now a new headstone marking his remains has been erected at the cemetery. The ceremony was conducted by the relevant Dr. Brutus Green, chaplain to 2nd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment. Mrs. Keighley's son Paul, 50, a police constable, said he was brought up hearing stories about his uncle. Her daughter Zoe, 56, from Warwick, added, "We gave up all hope in knowing where he was. Mum thought for a long time that he might have lost his memory and couldn't get home. I think it was a relief for her to have that closure. Mum finally knows where he is resting and is not always wondering what had happened." Tingle's final resting place came to light when 2 researchers submitted evidence about his whereabouts to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. The relevant Dr. Brutus Green, who conducted the rededication service, said, "The story of Private Tingle, a Methodist, a teacher, but most extraordinarily a non-combatant willing to put himself in the van of the battle, once again brings home the bravery of the ordinary British soldier. Taking the service honoring a man of such faith and principle, in the presence of his family, who only now have learned the full story, is an honor and a truly humbling privilege. We will remember them,